So guys, welcome to the next module in the course. Now, in this module, I want to talk about important concepts about sales. Again, before we jump into really, how to go about the sales script and how to handle objections and all that super juicy stuff. As I've already mentioned, there's a lot of kind of prerequisites that we need to go through. There's a lot of foundations we need to go through. Now, important concepts about sales. This module really is going to tie everything together and really just give you the entire foundations to know when it comes to sales. Okay, so let's get straight into it. First things first. Okay, one call closes. Always go into the meeting with the mindset of closing that prospect on that call. Okay, closing the prospect on that call. If a client is closable and there are no logistical objections as to why they can't sign on with you there and then there's no other reason you need follow-up calls with them. Okay, that's really what it comes down to. There's no other reason you need follow-up calls with them if the client's closable and there's no logistical objections. Okay, and especially with the sales script you will get in the next module. Now guys, this is super important. As I say, if the client doesn't have any problems, they're qualified, they can genuinely afford your services, no logistical objections, then there is literally no reason whatsoever to book in follow-up calls or to have a 2, 3, 4 call close. Okay, there's literally no need for it. As I say, if the client's closable, in terms of them being qualified, they genuinely can afford your service fee, all that type of stuff, and there's no logistical objections, and there's no reason why you can't close them there and then. So always go into the meeting with the mindset of closing the prospect on that call. And if you may be thinking right now, like, oh, how would I go about it? How do I approach it? Well, don't worry. I'm going to be giving you the exact script to use in the next module, which is exactly how I go about closing clients on one call. Now, the next thing is control. Okay, you need to always ensure you are in control of the meeting because this really does serve so many purposes. Primarily, it shows the client they cannot walk all over you and take you for granted. And you'll see this get carried out throughout the entire process. If they can sense or feel they can just walk all over you in the sales meeting or whatever the case may be, then even if you do end up signing them up as a client, they'll take that same idea and just simply walk all over you throughout the entire, relationship that you guys have. They'll be constantly messaging you, constantly asking you to do things, and really just not giving you the time and essentially freedom to do what you do best. So again, guys, you need to always be in control and really, for lack of better words, just show them who's boss. Okay, for lack of better words, show them who's boss in that. You just want to show them that you are an expert in your field. You're not one of their employees. That's a big thing. A lot of the time people, or clients I should say, see you as an employee and think that they're your boss, but really they're not your boss. You're a service provider that's providing an unbelievably valuable service to the brand or to the business. And so, you're not just another employee. You're a service provider that is really on the same level as the owner. So you need to make sure that you're keeping that control in the meeting. And really, guys, the best way to know if you're in control or not is if the client's asking you questions about certain things, like, so what is your experience? Then instantly you're not in control. Okay, if they ask building questions, that's completely fine. If you're explaining something in terms of, maybe, I don't know, Facebook ads, and they say, oh, okay, so how is this different to influencer marketing, for example? That's a building question. They're genuinely inquisitive. They want to know more. That's completely fine. But if you start explaining ads and then they go, just talking about Facebook ads, and then they go, so what's your experience like? They're trying to take you off track, and at that point you're not in control because you're not initiating the conversation. You're not you're not depicting where the conversation's going next. They're now taking over, and you don't want that. You want to always make sure you are in control within the meeting. Okay. Now, again, I know I've already touched on this in the previous module, but you need to, guys, you can probably see now that it's so important. I'm talking about it again, but you need to understand it's another human. Okay, this is vital to remember, is it will help you in so many different situations. And we've talked about all of the different benefits to understanding this, but honestly, guys, if you're getting flustered, it's only another human no big deal, okay? Getting nervous, again, it's another human, okay? Always remember that what you have is more important to them than what they have is to you. So I'm not gonna go too much into detail about this because obviously I went into very deep detail about it in the last module, but just truly understand that it's another human. The only thing that is different between you two is what you guys have, and what you have is more valuable to them anyway. So you really should be, they should almost be nervous to speak with you, okay? Because you have something that is far more valuable to them than what they have is to you, okay, guys? So truly understand this. It's going to help you, as I mentioned there, it's going to help you so much in so many different situations, and especially if you're getting started, it's going to massively help with your confidence. Now, here's another super important thing, and you'll see that this is very much played out within the sales script in the next module, but you need to make sure that you're not overly scripted. Okay, and the reason for that is each client values different things. If you try and sell a client based on ROAS, but they really value communication and relationships, then they won't actually see the value in your service, and vice versa. Okay, so if you try and sell a client on, the fact that you and your agency can consistently generate a 7 ROAS every single month, month in, month out. So for every dollar that the client spends, they're getting, $7 back. If you keep pounding and pounding that aspect of your service to a client who actually really values communication and relationships, then as I say there, guys, they genuinely will not see the value in your service, okay? And again, if you, like I say, vice versa, if you pound the fact that your communication is so streamlined that essentially it's, it's 24/7 communication, you kind of sell the fact of more relationships and whatnot, that said, the client values ROAS and actual real results, then again, they will not see the value in your service. So you need to understand that by being overly scripted will actually hinder you as opposed to benefit you. Okay, so as I go on to say there, you need to see where their underlying problems lie / values lie and base your service around that. So you need to understand where the client's values lie, so then you can sell your service around those values. So then naturally they're going to see the value in your business, in your service, right? It's very, very simple, but again, it's something that often gets overlooked so much because everybody's overly scripted, right? Everybody goes into the meeting with a script in front of them, and really they do not care what the client says. They just read from their script. Their client could say something that is very, very important, but you don't pick up on it because you're just reading the script. So again, it's so important, guys, that you're not overly scripted and that you figure out where your client's underlying values lie, and then you base your service around that so that they can truly see the value in it, okay? And I mean, as I said before, people think that ROAS, getting amazing ROAS and amazing returns is like the main thing. And yes, it's very important. It's very, very important that you get good results. But again, as I say, if you base your service around ROAS to a client who genuinely values communication, then they won't see the value in your service and they simply won't buy. Okay, so again, you need to see where that underlying problems / values lie and base your service around that. And don't worry if you think, again, you're not really too sure how to go about that. The sales script in the next module is going to show you absolutely everything around that and really just base and, show you exactly how I go about doing this sort of stuff, okay? Now, even though it's the same service you're selling, the way you position it will depict how successful you are, okay? And as I've already touched on, you are selling a Facebook ad service. But if you position that Facebook ad service as producing amazing ROAS, as I've already said, producing amazing ROAS to a client that values communication, then they won't see the value in it and it won't sell. You won't sell it. Now, if you position that exact same service, you're not selling anything different. You're not doing it at a cheaper price or a discounted price or anything. Like, everything is exactly the same, but you position that service as, very, very, bear in mind that you're speaking to a client who values communication. You go ahead and position that service around, 24/7 communication. Really, our clients don't ever wait much longer than, probably around an hour before we get back to them and implement whatever it is that they want and all that kind of stuff. You base it around in that kind of way, then the client's going to see the value in it. and you're going to be very successful. Okay, you're going to sell that client because they can see the value in it, and they understand that the price you're charging is lower than the value that it's, the perceived value. So they're naturally going to buy. But again, you won't be able to do that if you're overly scripted. So again, do not be overly scripted. And again, guys, the way you position it varies from client to client, which is why you don't want to be overly scripted, because clients differ. Different clients value different things. Obviously, as I'm sure you guys can understand, they value different things. So by not being overly scripted and actually understanding where their values and underlying problems lie, you can then go ahead and position your service around their values and make them see that your service is genuinely valuable. Okay. Now, listening is just as important, if not more important, than speaking, okay? Listening is just as important as speaking. This will help you understand where the client's pain points lie and what their underlying problem is. As I said, you need to see where their underlying problems lie / values lie and base your service around that. But the only way you're going to actually be able to understand that is by listening, okay? As I say, this will help you understand where the client's pain points lie and what their underlying problem is. And by listening, you can build relationships with you can build a relationship with the client. Again, this is going to massively help you because this essentially ties in and really just marries in with the fact that it's another human being and you need to sell the human being, not sell the invoice or whatever, because that human being is going to be able to sign the contract, pay the invoice. So if you can build a relationship with a client, then they're naturally going to like you more and they're going to give you what you want, okay? And again, if the client doesn't feel as though they have a relationship with you, then they won't buy, okay? Because nobody buys from people that they don't like. Nobody buys things from, if you don't like somebody, you're not going to go ahead and give them $3,000. So you need to build a relationship with a client, and you do that by listening, okay? And listen to this, guys. How you do that by listening, how you build relationships with clients by listening is that, if you have, you ask them a question, and let's think of an example. You ask them why they're on the call with you. And you'll see these questions and whatnot out, being laid out in the next module when we go through the script. But let's just say, for example, you ask them why they're on the call. What's the underlying problem within their, within their business, okay? And they go on this massive rant. They talk about everything that's going on with their business. They, really open up to you and just show you and tell you where their problems are and what they want to fix and where they want to go to, moving forward. All this stuff, right? And then, maybe 25 minutes later within the meeting, you ask, they've stopped their rant, and you guys have gone back, you've gone back to the sales script, and you're going through the sales script again. And maybe 25 minutes later, as I say, in the meeting, you then mention something, within their rant that they were talking about at the start. You then mention something that they were talking about in there, one of their real big problems. You then kind of go ahead and, whether you position your service around that problem or not, you just simply mention it and talk about it and how you can help them with that main problem. They are going to absolutely love you because they will feel as though they're being listened to. They will feel as though you understand them and you understand what their problems are. And by you understanding them, they'll feel as though you'll be able to really, really help them fix those problems and all that type of stuff, right? But again, you would not be able to do that. You would not be able to add in those extra pieces of information that the client talks about. That's, their pain points and whatnot. You won't be able to do it if you don't listen. And this somewhat ties in with not being overly scripted, because if they go on a massive rant, it doesn't hurt for you to go ahead and ask building questions on that. Really get them to talk about it. If they're talking about something and you actually have a question, go ahead and ask the question. Just because it's not on the script, it doesn't matter. You don't want to be overly scripted, okay? And again, all of this is going to tie in with building a relationship with the client. And again, that essentially marries in with the fact that it's another human being on the other end of the call, and they are the ones that are going to be able to pay the invoice. So if you can build a relationship with them, they are going to easily, or at least be a lot more inclined to pay the invoice, to sign the contract, etc., etc. And really the underlying foundation to all of this is by listening and really, active listening. Really understand what they're saying, really understand where they're coming from, and ask questions and building questions, and then use what they say to your advantage, in that you can then turn around later in the script and just add in what they've said, and they're going to feel like you understand them. They're going to feel like, you know, in quotation marks, you get them, etc., etc. And it's going to all help so much more when it comes to actually closing the sale or closing the client. Now, matching, and this is super important. So essentially, just before we get into this slide, matching means that you essentially match what the client does. Okay, so you need to match the client in terms of tonality, use of words, language, volume, etc. If you get on a call, okay, with a client and they're talking like this, they're very quiet, and they, you know, they're talking like this, and this is kind of this is the volume that you're using. Well, then you don't want to come on the call and talk really loudly and be all like, you know, over the top with everything, okay? You don't want to do that, guys, because they're going to feel as like, you know, they're going to feel as though, oh, this guy's so weird, he talks so loud, he's very over the top with everything, etc., etc. Now, you know, and vice versa, if somebody's very loud, then you want to match them, because that, as I go on to say, this will naturally make the client feel as though you understand them and that you get them. Even though you're not really doing anything different, you're just simply matching them, they're going to feel like you understand them and you get them. Now, again, when I say language, I mean this is probably a really, really big one. Probably one of the biggest ones I've noticed is swearing. Okay, so swearing, I never, ever initiate swearing, ever. Okay, because some clients like it, some people don't. They don't think it's professional. They think it's very, you know, childish and whatnot. That said, you get the other side of it where people love swearing. Everybody, you know, some people swear every other word. It's, you know, some people are quite bad with it, I've noticed. But what you need to do with those clients is swear with them as well, you know. So if they're, you know, talking and you can see, Jesus Christ, these guys swear a lot, then you want to use that same language. Obviously not swearing at them, but just be like, you know, if you're talking about other agencies and really just polarizing other agencies, you want to go on to say what you need to say, and then just kind of bring it back to, you know, for example, again, just be like, and honestly, James, it really just comes down to the majority of agencies out there are just shit, to be honest. Like, they just never do, you know, and go on with what you need to say. Just things like that, okay? Matching them, by matching them like that, it's going to massively help out with them understanding, you know, feeling as though you understand them, feeling as though you just get them. Now, as I mentioned before as well, guys, no matter how valuable you make your service seem, if the client doesn't feel as though they like you, then they won't buy. It's as simple as that. If you don't like somebody, you're not going to hand them over $3,000. You're not going to do it. No matter how valuable you feel as though the service may be, or whatever the case is, you don't like them, you know, they're not going to buy, okay? So again, this really does come back to the whole thing of building relationships, and you do that by listening and really understanding where they're coming from and putting yourself in their shoes, as I mentioned here. And then also matching, honestly, guys, it's going to help you so much in terms of getting them to feel as though they like you, really, without doing too much else, without saying anything in particular, just matching what they're doing and matching their, as I say, tonality, use of words, language, volume, all that type of stuff, okay? You know, as I've been saying, matching really does just serve as making them like you, which of course is always going to help you so much when it comes to the close. Now, how to become a true master at sales. Number one, preparation. Preparation truly is key. If you go into the sales meeting and you know their business like the back of your hand, it will make you seem so much more reputable. Okay, trust me, guys, it's going to make you seem so much more reputable, because if you can say things to them that, like, you know, they know, but they feel as though not many other people know, then they're going to be like, oh my God, I like this guy. He really knows what we're doing here at X business. You know, he really understands what we're trying to do. He really understands our vision. And I think, you know, both of our kind of visions align. So it's only going to help going forward, all that type of stuff. But again, you're only going to be able to get that information if you're prepared. And as the second point states there, you want to read through their entire website, take a deep dive into their socials, you know, i.e. Facebook and Instagram, the comments on their posts, their ad library, etc. reading this and really just preparing by going through these social platforms and their website, etc., you're going to be able to find out so much about the business. You're going to be really, you're going to really be able to find out what their goals are with the business and what their, true kind of underlying, ideas around the business and essentially their goals. If you can say in the meeting, and look, James, I completely understand that you and the team at Under Armour are really trying to just serve the entire triathlon community in terms of making them as the best triathlete they can be. I understand that. So really, that's where we're going to, and go into what you need to say. That, first things first, guys, that was a complete example I just made up there. But, if you can say that and they've not said that anything to do with that in the meeting, but you then go ahead and say that what I've just mentioned there, they are going to naturally, honestly, guys, I see it happen so many times. They're going to naturally feel as though you just completely understand them. You know what you're talking about just by you being prepared and really just reading through their entire website and whatnot. And as I say here, if you mention in the meeting certain things about their business, it will shock them in a good way. They will be completely taken back by the knowledge that you have about the brand, by you understanding the vision they have, all that type of stuff. They will be so shocked, and it's going to make the sale again so much easier. Now, number 2, experience. Practice, okay? Experience serves so many purposes. Number 1, you feel a lot more comfortable, okay? Once you've got a lot of experience, you feel a lot more comfortable. If you're just starting out, you may not feel comfortable, but, for where I am right now, I never get nervous for a sales meeting, and that's purely from experience and that I've practiced, okay? So that's number 1, you feel a lot more comfortable. Number 2, you know how to navigate around within the sales meeting. And what I mean by this is, if something arises, a problem, or, when they start to do objections or whatever the case may be, you will know how to navigate around that because you have experience and you've been there before. The best thing is to have touch points, and that's actually something we're going to go on to. But just knowing that, knowing what to do in certain situations is so much easier. Because then it's just, you know what to do. So you just do whatever it is that you need to do, but you can only build those touch points with experience. And again, we're going to go into that in the next slide here. But let's move on to number 3. You become a lot more articulate. And really, guys, the list goes on. But you become a lot more articulate. Something that's super important within sales is being able to physically get your point across. Okay, and this is something that you may not have thought about before, but when you're trying to get a point across, how well you get that across is going to depict how kind of valuable that point is, okay? We can all think things in our heads, okay? We can all see something within our heads, but if we can't articulate what we can see or articulate what we want to try and get across, then it's going to be absolutely useless because the person on the other end isn't going to be able to understand it. Okay, and if you can't do that right now, again, do not worry, because this really does come from experience, and it comes from practicing. So again, number 3, you're going to become a lot more articulate, and really, guys, the list goes on. Experience serves so many purposes, and really getting experience and gaining experience is only going to make you better. Okay, and if you get on a meeting and don't close them, do not worry, because you are adding to your experience, and that is truly something that money can't buy. As I said, building experience is only ever going to make you so much better. Okay, so again, if you get on a meeting and don't close them, it is not a loss, guys. I promise you it's not a loss. It may seem like it from face value, but the experience, the real world applications that you can pull from it are going to help you so much, and essentially it's something that money just simply cannot buy, okay? And in order to learn and effectively build experience, you need to record every single sales meeting so you can rewatch it and learn from your mistakes. Slight spelling error there, but so you can rewatch it and learn from your mistakes. Very important. If you get on a sales call and you don't record it, then yes, it's going to help with experience, but you can't benefit from it too much, if you don't close them or whatever. So you need to make sure you're recording every single one of your sales calls. If you're doing it on Zoom, which you should be, and obviously you guys know we've been through that. If you're doing it on Zoom, then you can just literally click on the bottom, like right hand side of the corner. There'll be a little record button, just simply click it and that's it. That's all you need to do, and it's going to then populate into your downloads after the sales call. Very, very simple, but make sure you do it because it's going to massively help you, really just become a true master at sales. Now, number 3, as I somewhat touched on before, you need to build touch points. By understanding that every sales situation is drastically different, but also identical, you will be able to become very effective at sales. Now, I know you're probably thinking, what the hell am I talking about? How could it be drastically different, but also identical? Well, let's have a look at that, okay? It's drastically different in that you can't script everything. You can't script everything out within a sales meeting because you first need to identify where the respective client's underlying problems lie. And these are going to differ from client to client, okay? And you guys know this now, we've already gone through it. You cannot script everything out because you need to identify where the client's underlying problems / values lie that you're actually on the call with. And again, these are going to differ from person to person. So that's how it's drastically different. But you also need to understand that every sales situation is identical in that it will all follow the same structure. And that, once you start building your experience, okay, you will start to see that majority of the times clients have the exact same objections and worries, okay? Majority of the time, really, there's only a handful of objections that people have, whether it be stung in the past by previous agencies, they just can't get good ROAS and really they just don't think Facebook's gonna work, all that type of stuff. There's only a handful. So if you can build touch points with how you handle those objections, then again, once they come up in sales situations and whatnot in the future, it's going to be so much easier for you because by building touch points, all you need to do is refer back to how you handled this specific situation last time. And this way you become a lot more efficient and effective, Instead of you having to come up with a completely new approach, a completely new structure to an objection, to a problem, to whatever the case may be within the sales meeting, instead of you needing to come up with a whole new thing that you need to go through, all you need to do is very, very simply just look at how you handled this last time and just repeat that same action, okay? But you can only do that by building touch points. And again, you can only build touch points by building experience, okay? And that's really another super important purpose that, building experience serves. So guys, I hope you found value in this module. Really, that is everything you need to know in terms of understanding the underlying foundations to sales and whatnot. Let's now move into the sales script and really understand how you need to take clients from the very start of the meeting to then closing them on a $2,000 to $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 per month service fee. So guys, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed again, and I will see you in the next module.